We live in a world where it's easy to get information. If you have a question, a lot of people will just tell you to Google it. Most people these days have smartphones, and they can get the information that they want within seconds. Sure, there's a lot of disinformation out there, and opinions that are touted as truth, but nonetheless, the advantages to retrieve knowledge is incredible. Despite all of this, we still have only a small understanding of how the universe works, and the nature of reality. One thing that always holds true is that not knowing what happens beyond our reality or our understanding can cause fear or even outright terror. There's little to no chance that we will ever come to an understanding, especially with the short lifespan that we have. The human mind is one that has to make sense of its surroundings, or such fear will set in. That being said, with the ease of sharing things over the World Wide Web, we are bound to get some rather unsettling experiences for many to see. I came across this thread where it was asked, what was some of the creepiest things that's ever happened to individuals? And I'm going to share them with you. Let's begin. When I was 9, I lived on top of a 4-story apartment building. It was summer. I was sitting in the living room with my brothers and my oldest brother's girlfriend when suddenly a bird flew in through the window. It circled the living room and it flew right back out. It was in one swift motion. I've never seen anything like it before. We were all amazed. My mom came into the room shortly after. We excitedly told her about the bird. Her reaction, we didn't expect. She said that means that someone was going to die. Well, that dampened the mood, but we all soon forgot about it. About a month later, death struck our family. My grandmother and great-grandmother died in a car crash. It was about a decade later when I remembered the bird and its warning. Since then, I've been slightly worried that I might see another bird circle the inside of a place that I'm in. I was an EMT. I was working from 4 a.m. to 4 p.m. We pick up our rigs and we get told to post. That means to hang out while waiting for a call. It was in a really bad part of town. We parked behind a shopping center where all the businesses were closed down due to a lack of people in the general area. It had a lot of trailer parks, really rundown apartments and whatnot. I picked this place because the sun was going to rise in an hour or so, and my partner and I, we both wanted to take a nap until a call came in. My partner had no problem sleeping while sitting straight up in the front of the ambulance. I absolutely could not do this, so I went back to the back to lay down. So I lay on the bench to take a nap. The thing about this old ambulance is that you couldn't access the back from the inside, so I'd open the door through the side door, not the very back double doors, and I lay down. The left side door was a bit cracked open, so if a call came, I could jump up into the front seat. About 5 minutes later, and I hear my partner call me.
Hey dude, you awake?
Yeah, what's up?
That person over there, they've been staring at us for a while.
Across the street, there was a sidewalk. It was alongside of a park. I could make out a faint shadow of a person. I knew it was someone because they had a cigarette butt, and it was flickering every few minutes whenever they took a puff. The street light was super dim, but I could still tell that they were just staring at us. It was really weird, so we watched them for a bit. After about 5 minutes of us just watching, the person walked away. We joked about how weird people are, being up at 5 a.m., roaming around a sketchy park. I lay back down and I start to doze off. I wake up to my partner saying,
Holy crap, dude!
So I pop my head up into the front cabin. There was a person standing like 20 feet away from the ambulance. They were dressed in all black, and they were staring at him. Their eyes were locked. I looked at her face, and I kid you not. She looked like the girl from The Ring. She had pitch black straight hair, and she was wearing all black. She was very light-skinned, and the street light made her look like she was white as paper. My partner was absolutely terrified as they stared at each other. I told him to hop over into the driver's seat so we can get out of there.
I can't, man. I'm too scared to move.
Well, I guess I have to squeeze in from the back. So I jump up, and I try anyway to get into the front cabin. I'm a bigger guy, but I make it through. She apparently takes notice of me moving, and she starts power walking straight toward us. I've never been so freaked out in my life. She was getting super close. I realized she was looking at the side door, and that I left it cracked open. I'm thinking, oh, forgot to close it. I get a good look at her face. She noticed the door, and I knew that she was going to try it. Maybe she was going to try to kill us? I don't know. But I have to get out of there. Her whole body was shaking, and she was getting closer and closer, still staring at my partner. She gets up right next to his window, and just staring at both of us. I get into the front, and about 1 second to spare, I start the ambulance and I peel out of there. We never posted there again. Just after high school, I started dating this girl. We were both at my mom's house at the time. It was during summer break. She had lost her glasses that morning. She couldn't find them anywhere. She went to go take a shower in one of the upstairs bathrooms, and I went outside to wash my car. I just finished up when she comes outside wearing her glasses, and I asked her where she finally found them. She looked at me a little weird, and she tells me that I gave them to her. I'm confused, because I've been outside the entire time. She then tells me that I opened the bathroom door, and I set them on the counter while she was showering, and then left. Now, we were the only ones home at the time, so this disturbed us quite a bit. I swore up and down that it wasn't me, and she starts to freak out. I grab a baseball bat from the garage, and we go into the house thinking that someone is in there that shouldn't be. We creep around the house, looking in all the good hiding spots, until finally making it upstairs to my brother's room. I start to move to my brother's room, and into his bathroom, where the door opens inward. Between the cracks of the door, I see someone hiding in between the door and the wall. Right then, I finally understand why people freeze when something's about to fall on them or to hurt them, because I was terrified. It lasted maybe a second, but it felt like minutes. Then I bashed the door with the bat, where the people was hiding behind, but they didn't cry out. Then I realized it was my brother's bathrobe. It was hanging on the back of the door. My girlfriend swore the entire time, and that she knew that someone put her glasses on the bathroom counter, but we never found anyone in the house. This happened back in July of 2012. I was off with my boyfriend on vacation. We inherited a small house on an island. It's situated a few kilometers off the coast of Brittany. You can only get there by a ferry. It's pretty small. There's only a few inhabitants that live there. There's not much to do, but it's really beautiful. It's a nice place for a quiet vacation. We like to go for rides. Now, I'll start telling my story. So one night, it was a clear night. It was doused in moonlight. We went out around midnight so that we can ride around the island. We were used to doing so. We headed to the beach that goes along a small family vacation village. Here's a quick description of the area. It's situated in a big curve bordered by small roads. Alongside the road is a strip of grass and sand. When standing on the strip, you have a very nice view of the beach and the sea below. The road in the village are situated on a steep cliff. To go down to the beach, you had to walk down some sheer narrow stairs that were situated a few meters away where we were standing. My boyfriend and I were standing by the road. We were standing on the strip of grass for like 10 minutes. We were looking down at the sea. I need to point out that it was a calm, clear night. We hadn't seen anything during this time. We were walking along the beach for a while. We hadn't noticed anything strange at all. No signs of human presence, no swimmers, mostly because the water's very cold, even in the summer. No young people on the beach having a party or anything. So we were standing on the cliff. We were facing the sea, when suddenly, straight ahead of us, we saw a human-shaped figure get out of the water and it hurried across the beach. I know, it's not something scary so far, except this figure was pitch black. It was really contrasted by the clear sand. It was not reflecting any light whatsoever. It was like a void. We first thought it was someone skinny dipping. Problem is, when you're going out of the sea, you first have to swim to the edge of the sea. Then you stand up and walk out of the water. This figure just gradually went out, all the time standing tall, as if it was just walking on the bottom of the ocean. Moreover, my boyfriend and I were just looking at the water. We never noticed anyone swimming. At the sight of that, I felt very uncomfortable. Not only to say that, I was really freaked out. My boyfriend is not easily scared. The weirdest part is that once this human-shaped figure got out of the water, it headed straight for us. It wasn't walking, it wasn't running, it was just sliding across the sand, and it was going really fast. A pitch-black human shape with indistinguishable face and features, just sliding fast over the sand. It was almost like it was gliding, not moving his legs or anything. It left no trail or footprints behind it. All the time just standing tall, in what was obviously a human shape. It was an average height for a person. We stared at it silently until it got a few meters away. Then without talking, we decided to get out of there, filled with a sense of dread and fear. We never saw or heard anything like it again. Nothing strange happened during the rest of the vacation. My boyfriend has said that he's witnessed some strange things on the island before, but nothing related to this story. This took place back in March of 2013. Me and my friends had just been to the movie, and we were just walking around. It was around 10:45 p.m. We decided we'd take a shortcut through the schoolyard. This old school had been abandoned, and it was in pretty bad shape. As we walked through the schoolyard, we decided to try to get inside the school and just explore around a bit. Now, the school consists of 2 wings, so the building is an L shape when viewed from above. It is 3 stories tall and has 3 entrances. The main entrance leads into some kind of main hall, which connects the 2 wings. Each wing has staircases, which lead to different floors. One of the windows right by the entrance was actually wide open, so we got in pretty easily. We were now in the basement. We used our cell phones as flashlights. We made sure not to point them toward the window, so to avoid being seen. Even though the building was not in use, there was still a lot of stuff just laying around. Musical equipment, uniforms, pool tables, chairs, and the like. So we were just exploring each room. We wanted to see if we could find anything cool. We explored the basement for like 15 minutes. Then we headed to the first floor. We were now in the main hall. There was some kind of tarp or large plastic sheet that separated the hall from the lower wing for some reason. I assumed it was some kind of construction work. We went down one of the corridors, and we started exploring the classrooms. Every classroom was either vandalized or suffered some kind of water damage, so everything was pretty much broken down or rotting. In hindsight, I think we was pretty lucky that the floor didn't collapse. We had just come out of the 3rd classroom, and we were in the corridor when we heard someone moving the tarp down by the main hall. This was not wind or anything, because we could definitely tell that someone was physically moving it. We could also hear footsteps, although the rhyme of the steps were kind of weird. It was like someone was changing their walking pace sporadically. It really didn't make any sense. I immediately went into the classroom to hide, as we thought someone had called security. We hid behind the door in the classroom for like 2 minutes. It was dead quiet. We didn't hear anything during this time, so we figured maybe it was just the wind, or some random noises. We decided to keep going. We went through the corridor and up to the stairs. We went to the other end of the main hall, and we explored the 2nd floor. While we were there, we would hear the occasional noise, but we'd just brush it off. I mean, the building was old. After a while, we explored the rest of the corridor. We decided to walk down the staircase that led from the 2nd floor to the hall. Halfway down the staircase, there was a plateau and the 2nd set of stairs. This is where things took a turn. We could see the plastic from there, and it was moving. We also heard some kind of scratching noise. We stood there for a second just listening. I decided to peek around the corner to see what it was. Then I saw something that scared the living hell out of me. It was some kind of creature. It was skinny, almost completely naked. I couldn't see any clothes at all. It had really thin strands of hair. It looked really pale, almost corpse-like. It was almost completely white. The first thing that came to mind was it looked like Gollum, just much bigger. It was crouched down and it was scratching the floor or something. It made some weird, growly, groany, breathing noises. It was faced away from us, so we just froze. We just stood there for a while just watching it. I took a step back and just pointed at this thing, and I looked at my friend. He peeked around the corner, and I could see his facial expression changed from a combination of fear and shock. It was reassuring in a way, knowing that he saw it too. We just stood there for like a good 20 seconds, just watching this thing do whatever it was doing. And the most cliche horror movie thing happened. My friend started to back away slowly, and while doing so, he stepped on a piece of glass, and it cracked. Well, that startled this creature, and it quickly looked over its shoulder right at me. I just bolted at this point. We ran all the way to the basement to get out. The whole way, I swear, it felt like it was right behind us. We ran back to my friend's house, and when we got there, we talked about it. I was trying to make sense of it, and to make sure we all saw the same thing. The closest thing to reference is this picture here. The picture on the screen is the closest reference that I can find. It pretty much looked exactly like that, just with thin strands of hair on its head. I understand that this seems like bullcrap, and I would be skeptical if someone else told me this story, but I swear, this actually happened. The only explanation I can think of, it was some homeless dude, and for some reason, he was naked in an abandoned school. But this was northern Norway, during the winter. They wouldn't survive for very long without clothes. Also, I live in a very small town, and there's very few, if any, homeless people. So that theory wouldn't really make any sense. It also could have been some kind of animal that found its way inside, but we got a good look at it, and it didn't resemble any animal that I've ever seen. I have no idea what this thing is. Back in the 1990s, I was a kid. I was around 13 at the time of the incident. I used to stay at my grandparents' house. They lived in a very rural area of southeast Arkansas. When I say very rural, I mean that it was a series of dirt roads. You had to get out there to get to their house. The closest neighbor besides us was my aunt and my uncle, and they live about a quarter of a mile up the road. This was very backwoods, and it was isolated. The closest town was a 10-mile trip. It was the middle of farmland, and mostly woods. They had lived in this house since my mother was a child, and both of my grandparents also grown up just down the road. Anyways, there was a general store roughly 3 to 4 miles down this dirt road. This was your typical country store. It was ran by an old lady and her husband. The only customers really only consisted of the people who lived there. One day my grandmother asked me if I could walk to the general store to get her some milk, eggs, and a few other items. And I told her I would. She gave me some money and I headed out on my way. It was fairly early in the day, and I had plenty of time to get back before dark, which I always made sure to do. Things get mighty creepy out in the backwoods of Arkansas. It's a darkness unlike most people who live in the city has ever experienced. Me being a 13-year-old, I had poor time management skills. I stopped at the bottom of the hill, next to a small wooden bridge. You have to cross it, but I decided to mess around in the creek, catching crawdads, and just kind of messing around all the way to the store. By the time I left the store, I realized that it was approaching dark. This was fall, and darkness fell pretty early in the day. I didn't want to be walking these lonely, secluded roads through the woods alone in the dark, so I hurried as fast as I could. I was running and sprinting as much as possible, but it wasn't enough. By the time I made it to the bottom of the hill that was near the bridge, it was already completely dark. There was an eerie sort of glow that was brought about by a very bright, nearly full moon. At the top of the hill, the road was perfectly straight and flat. There was woods on the left side and a large field on the right. About a half a mile up, on the top of the hill was my grandparents' house. I could see it from there. As I went to the top of the hill, I could see a faint glow of lights from their house, and I feel a sense of relief because I was kind of freaked out a little bit. But knowing that I was so close and that I could see the house offered a little bit of comfort. The field on my right was somewhat illuminated by the glow of the moon, and my eyes had adjusted to the darkness. As I walked up the road, I heard something to my left, behind me on the wooden side of the road. It sounded like leaves were rustling. I turned back to look, but I see nothing at first. But then my eyes began to focus, and I see something in the ditch. It's a black shadowy shape, slowly moving toward me. At first I thought it was a dog, but then I realized that was much too large to be a dog. Then I realized it wasn't actually walking on 4 legs. It was actually crawling, like a person would. I stared for a moment, out of sheer confusion, trying to figure out what it was. And then a jolt of fear just shot through my body as it dawned on me. Whatever this thing was, it had been trying to sneak up on me. At that exact moment, this thing stood upright out of the ditch, on 2 legs, just like a person. It had a human shape, but with really long arms and legs. It stood roughly 7 or 8 feet in height. It was completely covered in black or maybe dark brown hair. Its face was dark in color. I can't recall seeing much in the way of features because it was night. It was no bear for certain, or any kind of animal that I've seen before. I immediately dropped my bag and stuff, and I bolted as fast as I could. I ran toward my grandparents' house. I hear a very heavy breathing and guttural growling kind of sound that was coming behind me. And this thing's footsteps were right on me. I could hear the gravel crunching as it gave chase. I did not turn around. I was certain that it would grab me at any moment. I then heard a crash off into the woods. It let out an earth-shattering, ungodly scream, unlike anything I've ever heard since. I'm positive this thing could have easily caught me, but for some reason, it let me go. By the time I reached my grandparents' house, my heart felt like it was going to explode. I was scared beyond any kind of fear that I've ever had before, and I full-on sprinted as hard as I could for about a half mile. I flew into the house, and I was an incoherent mess. I was talking in a hyperactive gibberish, trying to explain to my grandparents what just happened. My grandmother didn't seem to believe me, but she did believe something did scare me, and that I was reacting pretty weird about the whole thing. She tried to convince me that it was some sort of dog or other animal. The next morning I woke up, and I found my grandpa sitting outside. He was just whittling on wood beneath a shade tree in the front yard. I went and sat down beside him. Now he's a very rational man. He's down to earth. He had grown up and hunted in this area his entire life. He knew every square inch of it. He knew every type of critter or creature that lived in the woods, what noises they make, and where to find them and how to catch them. I had only been hunting with him a couple of years at that point, but I've been going out into those woods since I was pretty young. He taught me a lot of things during this time. I spoke to him about what happened that night, and he told me he knew what I saw, that it wasn't my overactive imagination, and that I wasn't making it up. He knew that it wasn't some dumb 13-year-old kid's imagination. He stopped whittling. He looked right into my eyes and he said,
I know what you saw. I've seen it too before. There's things out in them woods people don't understand, and that people ought not be fooling with.
I remember those words clearly, because it gave me an affirmation, but at the same time it made me realize that what I saw was very real, and it was beyond my understanding. My grandpa told me that far back in the woods there were cliffs, and at the bottom of the cliff was a cave. He said in that cave is where the creature lived. He had once stumbled upon it a long time ago. He was hunting in the area. He said he was standing on the top of the cliff, and he was looking down at a creature that was fitting the same description. It emerged from the cave, and it began screaming wildly at him and throwing rocks. He said he took a shot at it, but he missed, and then this thing gave chase to him. But my grandpa was at the top of the cliff, so in order to get to him, this thing had to go around a pretty good distance, which he said it quickly began to do. So he hightailed it out of there in a hurry. He said the whole way back home, he felt like he was being watched, and he kept hearing twigs snapping in the background, right behind him. He was certain that this thing was stalking him. He made it home, and he reached the front porch. He turned and looked back into the woods, and he saw it peeking out at him behind a tree. He said that my grandmother woke up early in the morning, and there was large rocks being thrown at the house, and this ungodly howling noise. This thing was trying to get into the house. He said he could hear it walking around the porch, rattling the doorknobs, banging on windows. It sounded like it was muttering to itself in a very low, garbled voice. But it didn't sound like any language, just a bunch of gibberish. After a while, the thing went back to throwing some rocks and growling. So my grandpa grabbed the shotgun, and he fired it out the front door in the direction of the howling. He could hear it run back into the woods. He didn't know if he hit it or not. He said that was the last he'd ever seen or heard from it. But over the years, an occasional farmer's cow would be mutilated, or some hunting dog would go missing, and he would hear stories about some strange creature that one of the locals had seen. He'd also said that it scared his grandmother beyond words. She absolutely refused to ever talk about it, or even acknowledge that it happened, which explained her acting weird about it. I know it's pretty far-fetched, and you can believe it or not. It makes no difference to me. I know what I saw, and my grandpa knows what he saw. Neither of us have ever felt the need to convince anyone of it. Until today, I've never actually spoken of it. Thanks for joining me for this edition of The Creeper. You guys have any creepy experiences? I'd love to see them in the comments. I know that I've been a bit off here lately, mainly because I'm helping my in-laws move up here so we can help them better, and it's a lot of work. This is the first time they've moved in over 40 years, and it was family land, and they had to sell it. It's getting too much to maintain. Plus he has multiple sclerosis. I don't know if I said that right. Probably didn't. And he can't walk or do anything. Plus they're kind of old, so I hope they don't hear this. And the house needs quite a bit of work that's here, so me and Red are going up there and doing some cleaning. We're going to have to do some serious cleaning, honestly. Someone did a lot of smoking in there, so it smells pretty bad. We're going to have to degrease everything and then paint. But it's still a nice house. We can walk to it. But I got a lot more work ahead of me, so I'm going to do as much as I can. Thank you very much for joining me. I want to give a special thanks to my patrons. Your help is greatly valued, and it helps out quite a bit. Seeing that I make $1 an hour off of each video, but knowing that you guys appreciate it and that it's helping makes it more than worthwhile to me. So I hope you come back for more. Until next time, stay safe out there. And this is Dallas, signing off.